If you've been living under a rock for the last week and need catching up on what's going on in the markets and in the world in general, then this is the video for you. We're going to catch you up on what's been going on. The first thing I'm going to point out is this is the oil chart, and this is the daily oil chart. We can see, compared to a week ago, oil is now up about $10, going from about 63. It actually spiked all the way up to 76, and now we pulled back to around 71, 72. So if you haven't noticed already, your gas prices have probably gone up some. And what caused this increase in the prices? Well, on June 12th, Israel sent missiles into Iran, and they were trying to take out the nuclear sites. They were also trying to take out the head of leadership in Iran. So their longer goal is to take out the nuclear sites and the leadership, and so that's what they're trying to accomplish. Iran, being one of the top producers of oil, knowing that they're going to be compromised and that the Middle East might be in a much larger conflict, that's what sent the oil way up. There's also the possibility that the Strait of Hormuz would be closed down, which is a major area where the oil gets exported. And if that was shut down by Iran, well, that would cause a supply crunch and oil price would go up. So this huge increase in oil that we've seen here is from speculators and traders buying up the price of oil, with understanding that there might be a possibility that the oil might go much higher even than what we have here. And since then, oil has pulled back, so they've kind of found a fair price somewhere in here. They are pricing in the odds that there may be a much larger conflict coming in the Middle East, as well as the odds that things will cool down. Right? There's always several factors that go into the different odds and outcomes, and that's what they're pricing in and out. And something that's found interesting is Israel is sending rockets into Iran. Iran is sending missiles back. There's actually 2 or 3 countries in between them. There's Iraq, and there's Jordan and Syria, depending on kind of how those lines of the missile fly. So 3 countries in between those missiles. It's actually quite a great distance that these missiles are flying. And I know that Iran even attempted a drone swarm strike on Israel, but those were shot down. So I just find it interesting that there's such a distance and there's so many countries between them, but they're still able to fire those missiles and hit each other. So there's the potential for a regime change in Iran, where they'll get a new, maybe a new form of government. But Polymarket has the Ayatollah Khamenei as there being a high chance that he will no longer be the leader of Iran at a certain point soon. And Polymarket has many bets, like the odds that the U.S. will get involved militarily with Iran. And the odds were low, around 10%, 15% before the strike on June 12th. And now it's actually shot up as high as 70% or more at one point. And now it's kind of sitting around 50%. So there's a 50% chance that before July, so we have, 13 days left, that 50% chance that the U.S. will take military action against Iran. Now, if they do, we would likely see another increase in the price of oil like we've seen, because this very strong rally, this very sudden rally that drove us up 10 points in oil, a lot of that was pricing in some of these possible outcomes, like the U.S. getting more involved as well. So if the U.S. does not get involved, we'd probably see oil go lower, or at least not continue to rally. But if we do get involved, then that would probably see price of oil increase, right? Because what are the possible outcomes of that? And a lot of those would be that there would be less oil coming from the Middle East. There's also gold. Here's a 5-minute chart for gold on the night of June 12th. So you can see the moment that the news hits the market, right at 7:45 Eastern time. And then gold rallied up to about 60 points higher from what it was, right? And so what is gold an indicator of? It's an indicator of uncertainty, right? If you want to boil it down to just one word, I would use uncertainty. It's an uncertainty indicator. So with gold rising so sharply, that means that the uncertainty in general in the world increased over that time period. People are uncertain what the outcomes are going to be, so they flock, they put their currencies into something that is more certain, which is gold, right? Gold will always maintain some form of value. It's always been desired. It always will have some form of being desired. And what I found interesting was that at the same time when the rockets were flying, gold was going up, oil was going up. At the same time, Bitcoin was going down. Right? You can see the moment here that the news hit the Bitcoin market, and Bitcoin fell about 3,500 points. So, I mean, what people are hoping for, people that are bullish on Bitcoin, they're hoping that it will act as that flight to safety, like gold has been and the dollar has been. When there's uncertainty in the world, people flock to gold and the dollar, and people are hoping that Bitcoin will eventually fill that role as well. Sometimes it seems like it does, but when there's such an event like this, where it's very obvious, like, okay, check on gold, see what gold's doing. Gold is surely going up. And when you get that kind of situation, then you see Bitcoin going down. So I would say Bitcoin is not yet acting as that form of flight of safety. So for me, if I'm seeing some major event in the world that is causing uncertainty, causing some fear, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. I would rather go towards gold, right? I would rather pull up my gold chart and place an order on the gold instead of trying to place an order on Bitcoin. I would have more confidence that I'd be able to trade the gold and be bullish on gold if there's such an event happening than with Bitcoin. But maybe that'll be different in 5 years or 10 years, and we'll just have to wait and see. Another chart is the E-mini. Look how the E-mini fell right when the news hit. And so that night it fell about 100 points in the E-mini. Since then, we're now at 60. So we've basically recovered back to where the price was when it first dropped. You can see this huge drop that occurred in the market when that was going on. So you can use these events to study so that when the next time an event like this occurs, then you would be ready to be able to take a trade. So for me, let's say, what's an obvious example? Let's say like China invades Taiwan, right? If you're sitting there watching the news and breaking news, this has just occurred, well, then this is what we could expect to happen. And notice, so first of all, the huge funds, they pay, I don't know how many millions of dollars to get the news first, right? We can tell there's so many ways to make money. If you could be the first person to know, like that Israel was striking Iran, if you're the first person to know, you can take these bets and you make huge amounts of money. So there's lots of value in being able to be the first, and so people pay a lot to be able to get that news milliseconds before someone else. So when we look on this 5-minute chart, here's 2 5-minute bars, and that's what occurs over 10 minutes. That's the kind of drop you get in 10 minutes. But look for the next couple hours. There is a continued drop that occurs after that initial drop. So even if you're second or third, and then you'd be shorting here or somewhere down here, you can see there's still room to make profit on something like this. And frankly, something like Russia being involved or China like invading Taiwan, like those two events would be much larger, in my opinion, than Israel and Iran having a conflict. So if you're to see more major countries starting to get involved in a war, like when you see those bombs dropping, then you're likely to see a much larger drop than this. And gold, you'd be likely to see a much larger rise, and probably in oil, once again, you're likely to see a much larger rise. So, let's not fool ourselves. This is not the last time you're going to see some sort of conflict between two countries. And, this is something that just repeats itself over and over and over again. And yes, you're not going to be the first to get the news. You're not the one pressing the button, and you're not the one paying millions of dollars to get the news first. But even when you're second or third, then there are still trading opportunities. And this is the example from this. So I would study these charts, and mentally you could think, what would be my plan for the next time something like this happens? And of course, none of this is trading advice. I'm just saying what I do, how I look at the markets, and how I study them and prepare. In more recent news, Trump had posted on his True Social, said, simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. So that sent the poly market odds of U.S. military action up, and that's why we're around 50% right now. The nuclear facilities are located deep underground, and so the only way to really strike them directly would be with a bunker buster bomb. And to my knowledge, only the United States would be able to produce such a bunker buster. So it's a 30,000 pound bomb designed to attack deeply buried and hardened bunkers and tunnels. And only the United States has this capability. It would be dropped from a B-2 bomber. So currently the B-2 bomber is the only plane configured to be able to drop this kind of bomb. So unless Israel is able to indirectly take out these nuclear sites, if you want to actually drop like a bomb into there and actually blow it up, then you need the B-2 bomber to be involved and to be dropping the 30,000 pound bunker buster. So for anyone trading or for anyone that's just curious about what's going on in the world, I would stay up to date with Polymarket, stay up to date with Trump's Truth Social posts, and probably also just follow a couple news accounts on Twitter, and that'll give you a nice broad idea of what's going on. Polymarket alone can really give you the news, because right, they have different sections of different places to bet, different categories, and when you see the odds of U.S. military action going up, well, then that tells you that something's going on. If it goes up to 100, that means that the U.S. basically has it, attacked. And so just from looking at Polymarket, you can really get your news from just by doing that. So one last chart. Here's the E-mini daily chart. And by looking at it, you wouldn't even really be able to tell that we've had this going on. So the E-mini remains bullish, and until something changes, really probably until we get below the moving average, then that would continue to remain bullish on the E-mini. So there's kind of a recap of what's been going on this last week. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Be happy to answer. And thank you for watching.